When we talk about the process of modernizing the public administration, we're actually talking about one component of a larger grouping of activities that happen as a result of or as part of the process of development. So public administration is one. We talk about modernizing the economy. We're talking about turning an agricultural, small-based of production into a much more industrialized and productivity-based economy that adds value through that enhanced productivity. We talk about modernizing the political system. We're usually talking about a world of how we modernize how power is ordered, how power is transferred over time. And under pre-modern systems, it's the strongest person or it's the brother of the king. But under a modern system, there is a merit base to the way in which that transfer occurs, and someone makes an argument for why you should have me and not someone else as the leader. We also talk about modernizing society, and when we modernize a society, we're basically trying to move to a world in which everybody is accorded equal rights and responsibilities. So men and women, young and old, people from different religious and ethnic groups are all regarded as being equal in society, and that's a seemingly obvious thing perhaps, but for many countries and many places that's still a long journey still to be traveled. When we talk about modernizing the public administration though, we're talking about something that holds the rest of these packages together. We have to have lots of rules to govern how markets function. We have to constrain powerful people against the not powerful people. We have to provide services like health and education to people. All of that requires a vast, complicated set of bureaucratic systems, and that has to work well for everybody to be truly modern. But for that to happen, it has to be staffed by people who know what they're doing, people who are in the positions they are in because they're competent, because they meet professional standards, because they've been trained appropriately to do that work. In a pre-modern system, you work for the government because you're a friend of the government, or you know the right people, or you have connections, or you bought your way in because you gave money to a campaign or something. In a modern system, you're there because you've earned it, because you're the right person, you've shown that you have the right training and the right capabilities to do the work that is asked of you. And much of the work in development now is really trying to modernize public administrative systems in that way. When states go through this process, they usually are trying to take a very small system and making it bigger. They're taking a system maybe that hasn't got people that have the right skills and need to upgrade those skills, or the software and the hardware, the computing systems, all of these things need big upgrading. Or the very practices that the governments themselves are doing need to be changed. For that process to happen, usually for poor countries at least, that requires some form of funding, some form of external assistance or of one kind or other, whether it's in money or training in order for that to happen. But once you engage with outside actors, they have very particular expectations about the speed at which reforms will occur, the kinds of reforms that they will regard as legitimate and evidence of success. But the problem with that is that in the pressure to create change, you end up creating change that looks like change rather than change that actually is demonstrably improving the functionality of the system. So we distinguish there between changing the form and the function, what something looks like and what it can actually do. And it's not hard to change what a system looks like. You can change the laws, you can change the organizational charts, you can build a new building, all of which looks very impressive and sort of can make people feel good perhaps in the short run, but that's changing what the system looks like, not actually changing what it does. And learning to be more capable, learning to have your whole team of people be more capable is roughly the equivalent of learning how to play the violin. You've got to be awful at it before you get really good, and you only get better at it by practicing how to be better. And so just changing the infrastructure that you work with or the buildings you work in doesn't usually change the functionality of the system. And what we're really trying to do now is to worry much less about what things look like and worry much more about how we help people to become much more proficient as a team at doing the very difficult work that the public administrative work involves. One of the additional ways in which reform is difficult is because powerful people like it the way it is. If it's become a way in which you can reward your friends and punish your enemies, then having other people try to change that and move it in a different direction can be quite threatening to your own personal interests. So any process of reform, whether it's even in the private sector, it's always an inherently difficult process because powerful people usually like it the way it is. That's one reason to take politics seriously. But politics isn't just in the structuring of the organizations or in the electoral systems. Power and politics is everywhere. It's how people navigate their way through the world. And so the challenge there is that much of what constitutes politics isn't just observable through the usual means. We can't do surveys on it. We can't see it with the usual instruments that we might use for being able to nudge a change in one direction or another. Most of politics occurs through, the most insidious forms of politics occurs beneath the waterline, as it were, like a big iceberg. You can see the little tip at the top, but most of the real work is happening underneath the water. And so when we say we need to take politics seriously or we need to take context seriously, it's about trying to recognize that what we can see, especially as outsiders, is usually not the full picture. And to get a much richer sense of what that full picture is, one has to invest a lot of time in understanding the local culture, the local history, the way in which things have come to look the way they do in this particular place. And that should be then the basis on which a more reasoned strategy for moving that system to a new place might happen.